Hello and welcome to the Roundtable Podcast. My name is Shogun. Joining me again today is my good friend Draccar, the server's resident reptilian expert and reptilian soul. In the previous podcast, he describes the war for Earth and the reptilian conspiracy in great detail. Make sure you check that out. It's in the general chat now. Today we're going to talk about his encounter 3 days ago or so with reptilians and the conversation that him and his friend had with them. But before we get started, make sure you join the Roundtable Discord server where we do these podcasts almost every day, usually at 8 p.m. Central and other times like now at other times. Make sure you check out hashtag RT Podcasts for our past channels and the announcements channel for our upcoming events. There will be another one later tonight with Wolven Rain about technocracy, which will be very interesting as well. That being said, welcome, Draccar. Thank you for joining me. How are you, my friend?
Doing awesome.
Good. So let's set the stage. You're on a road trip with a friend. Who is the friend? You don't need to use his official name. And where were you going?
I'm sorry, ask again. I'm going to have to turn you up.
My understanding is this encounter happened when you were on a road trip with a friend. So who is the friend and where were you going?
Friend was somebody who I'd known online for a while. I used the opportunity because for the last 2 months, I've been high-end meditating back before all the craziness with the shadow government started happening to me in 2017. For 3 straight years, I was meditating every day, increasing my technique in my everyday altered state until that started becoming a problem and attracting bad things, right? So I started to occasionally ruffle some feathers by taking psychedelics, because that forces me into a state that concerns them and attracts them in the form of aircraft and personnel. If I'm in the public, especially, they don't like me doing this. So I thought it a great opportunity to move from where I'm at and perform, and then similarly with psychedelic mushrooms and its psychic potential when under its influence, or it kind of forces you into an altered state synonymous with meditations that increase energy flow. So I said, okay, it would be nice if I made up my mind before he had came up here saying that I'm looking for people to trip with. You could have recalled me asking folks, hey, what about you? Well, this is a friend I've known online for quite a while. He was willing to take his truck and drive up here, and a nice 10.5-hour drive if you don't stop. So ultimately 12-hour drive. We end up going to his place. Now, I also wanted to test the theory if the aircraft that had bothered me here would bother me there similarly, because I was tossing and turning of whether the nuclear plant I live less than a mile from had something to do with this. So going to another state, somewhere not next to such a federally protected facility, and seeing if the same results occur. And I also was able to test another thing, whether or not people in my physical location, not necessarily me interacting with them or talking with them, but me reaching these altered states in an area where there's a lot of people. If these psychic states that produce some level of physical and non-physical influence, whether this was relevant to their decision to send extreme aircraft to me. And let's just say that on that try, on the second trip, because we only tripped twice while I was there for a week, about. On the second trip was at his apartment, where not only in the building are 7 other people, but these apartment places that are around, that are in this circular kind of cul-de-sac, had a lot of people, eight persons per apartment, and they had a lot of people in the general vicinity, 0.5 miles from there, which my area of influence in some of these higher states are even further than that. was plenty and plenty of people. So that's what I did. And that day, 2 Apache helicopters. They never actually sent any of these kinds of helicopters to me, other than that time in 2017, of which I spoke about in the previous podcast. So this was surprising that not only 1, but 2 in a populated area like this, they, again, did not care who's seen them or why. But it vibrated the entire apartment. I mean, these things really do. They're loud as fuck, these attack choppers, especially when they're so close. Like there was shit on the table, like vibrating. But you could feel the vibration in your chest and in your body mostly, especially in these sensitive states. And after that, they increased their daily aerial surveillance with the UAVs. They had a endless high altitude surveillance drone or something that was doing large and wide circles endlessly for 24/7. This thing circled around the area, seemingly with me at the center, or at least the area. So, that's still going on. And again, more UAVs and way more than before. And I thought that shit was crazy beforehand, but no. After this experience, things have taken a turn, in my opinion, in the positive. Although to most people, I think they wouldn't really consider this positive. So yeah, I did take this road trip down to North Carolina. That was the purpose, and it was successful in many ways. But on our way back, my friend, on his phone was joined a Discord call that was on another server. It was a live event with over 25 people. You could hear the person on the way to the gas station, and while we filled up, I went to go take a piss because the gas station was actually closed, and was one of them really those unnamed gas stations that have the it's a really like hole in the wall. When they are open, it's in the daytime. At night, it's just a credit card thing. Well, I guess he got discount gas there, so that's why we were going there. So while he filled up, I went to go take a piss, and I came back, and the podcast is still going on, but like right in the middle of it, it had completely interrupted. Couldn't hear the host anymore. Couldn't hear anybody. When he looked at the phone, he was actually out of the call. It didn't say voice connected, nothing, and he didn't have any other external programs on the phone. Anyway, yes, you could hear these reptilians. They absolutely were. If we did get a recording, but he supposedly deleted it. It isn't on my phone anymore. He did play it back to me, so I was able to hear it. The recording, it definitely existed. And I took it as a sign that if you could be stupid enough to accidentally delete the damn thing, then I think it wasn't really meant to be. So I think that was more of a personal thing for me anyway, and maybe not him so much. I don't think he appreciated the experience as much. But in any case, it did happen. These 3 guttery sounding beings that if you could just hear it, the energy that they put out was just fantastic. They seemed happy and excited. Through all 3 of them with different kind of personalities that you can detect almost immediately. It wasn't very hard, and once they cut in with that kind of audio, that something really good was happening. But this wasn't me. In the past, I've accidentally channeled spirits or entities into electronic devices coming out of the audio, but this wasn't that. This was like clear audio. This was better. Like they had a badass microphone or something, right? And you can hear clear audio. It was coming through the cell phone. I'm not sure if it was a cell phone signal or the internet that it was connected to. I really don't know. I just know that they had basically cut out the previous audio, got us out of the Discord call, and with no programs running, had an audio coming in. So they hacked the shit. They hacked it or something. They got through. This is unbelievable. And I know this sounds crazy because all my experiences don't involve things like this, and I would never in a million years expect on the phone for what felt like family, and that I know those 3 would come in through the audio of any device, right? It doesn't compute with any of my previous experience. And it's too surreal And you can have another question, actually. Maybe I can get more on track.
Well, so essentially, you encountered for some period of time an auditory conversation with beings that you believe were reptilian aliens. So tell us in as much detail as possible about that conversation, including how they sounded, what they said, what you said, and what you understood them to be trying to communicate to you. That's what we really want to try and get as much information about as we can.
What they sounded like. I'm gonna try to mimic the main guy, because it was a main fellow who was talking mostly. He sounded like the serious one there for more of a actual an important message, right? What was actually said, I could only draw on the kind of energy they put out. I don't actually understand how their language. I don't know. And it's not like we were connecting energetically, but it wasn't telepathic. I think I'd have to either meet them, or if they are actually three people that I know from the past, then I would be able to access an already existing connection. Anyway, how they sounded, I'm going to try my best. Bear with me. This is impossible because you need like some kind of huge and back throat, right? You need like the area behind your throat needs to be really, really big in order to produce these sounds, because I could feel every sound, and I had this like visual of their physical selves. It was like this blue outline of them. And even during the end part of the conversation, I was able to feel through the sounds that one went from one part of their little room that there was in. You could tell just by the sounds they were in a small enclosure. One went from the right side of the room to the left. I could feel him walk over there and like hit a button or pull a lever or something. So I mean, I was tuned in during this experience, and even now, more tuned in than I normally am. But I'm gonna take a sip of this water and try to reproduce the sounds. And you tell me. It's not like I said. It's not going to be the same, but it's at least something. So the main fellow, the one that sounded serious, had a message and was speaking more than either of the other two. One of them was more silent than the other, or the other two. He was, you could say, person number two. He was the one who walked across the room. He was the one who almost echoed the guy in the front. He had his own message for sure, but out of all of them, he had the least expressive energy. The one in the back, the third one, had the most expressive energy and let out these noises. He talked, but like felt like he was so excited that he couldn't help but let out these yelping, chirping, sort of squawking sounds, like rah, rah. This was no doubt a conversation. There was a backwards and forth. They were responding to our audio. They were their energy. I could follow it backwards and forth. This whenever we spoke, they grew silent and then responded with talk. So it was definitely 10 plus minutes of backwards and forth between these three. It was not some noises that we confused. It was 10 straight minutes. Like, how can somebody, two people, anyway. So this is what the first guy sounded like. And the one in the back with the yelping, it was almost the same thing, but way with way less like the breathing in and out stuff. Like, it's like a huge load of energy. It's like pouring out. I mean, just pouring out this energy that like overtakes you, increases like your energy flow overall. But damn. And it was a great conversation with him. But the one in the back, I see him like it seemed like I knew all three of them. The one in the back yelping, I have a special connection to him. I'm not sure what it is. They're probably like huge badass motherfuckers that can kick some serious ass, but like the one in the back, I see still was adorable. I don't care if he's 12 foot tall. When the conversation first started, my buddy had said something about something obvious about loving reptilians, right? He's sort of about this, but me, myself, and my experience from when I was 6 up to here, it was clear and very concise about they were coming through and this audio for me specifically. He actually doesn't have any real connection to these beings, nor, in my opinion, any other reptilian, but I really cannot be the judge of that. It's him and his experiences matters, really. His demeanor when they started coming through, and he was on board, just as I was, that this was a conversation between beings that can precisely roll their tongue, not use a voice, and communicate with these clicks, rolling sounds of their back of their throat, yelping sounds, everything but what vocal cords are used for. So it was probably, clear that they didn't have vocal cords, just like I presumed beforehand. But I was actually had experience before that kind of showed me that. But these beings carried an energy that was great. It was like when they first came in, they started celebrating, like happy birthday type shit. Like they're all like yelling and kind of like feeling great. And it was, to me, like I'm reunited with old friends. And in this case, it would be brothers, family. It was unbelievable. I mean, I always wondered if I had ever died, would I have gone through this entire life without having one physical experience with what I consider to be my family, and I would have appreciated it even if it was reptilians that I weren't necessarily connected to, nor my species origin. Be happy with something else. But then this happens, and even though it was just an audio, and really, I greatly prefer physical presence among them. This was still better than I had anticipated, and it does put a peaceful note on the way my life has evolved.
Okay, so the question, in addition to what you've already said, is just what do you think they were trying to say to you? Why did they contact you, and what was the message that they were trying to convey to you, do you think?
I think what message was, this is what I've gathered from it so far. This is a presumption, and I think the more time goes by, the better. And I think it's all supposed to really pan out this way. I think higher self knows exactly what they said, and that the unveiling to myself, to my conscious self, of what was actually said and what needs to be done or not done is something that will come to me if necessary over time, or maybe not at all. I think that by doing what they did, they have tapped into cellular lines or the internet to get this audio through, and that wherever they are, which I believe to be some kind of small ship, they gave away their location via the signal they had to use. And I believe that was intentional. I think the message was just, at this point, you're doing well, keep doing what you're doing, and that's it. And all that really matters is the excitement and the connection, bond, reuniting, because I could still feel their energy even now. The more I talk about it, the more I tap into it. It was seriously the greatest thing ever for someone like me. That was like, I lived my whole life for that type deal. And it makes me smile.
So thank you. So you're also under the belief that your friend, his family was targeted by the shadow government as a result of being part of this experience. Is that correct?
I would say rather for being around me. I think that his presence was unwelcome by not only the reptilians that contacted us, because if it weren't for him, this wouldn't happen, because he wouldn't have a place in North Carolina where I had these experiences, which I believe ultimately led to this happening. But I believe that the shadow government is really serious when it comes to my situation, and they don't play any games. They certainly don't like me doing these podcasts, but that's kind of the point. Ruffling feathers. I'm not stopping. They already, in my opinion, murdered one of my brothers, and he was all the way across the other side of the planet. But that's neither here nor there. The point is that they do, and I know this, target those who get close to me. I made him aware of what would happen before he'd show up, because the first person who was on the other podcast, whose name is Bliss, here on Discord, he knows firsthand that this is true. But when it was him, I didn't actually know it would happen like that. And deep regrets about involving him, because he didn't have anything to do with this or anything so severe and damaging before he met me. So, I had a chance to do this with another friend, but make him very, very, very strongly aware that the things that would happen, the risks that he's taking by doing this, blah, 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 blah. I knew all of it. However, with the contact experience we had in the shadow government surveillance, it was all tapped. All our cell phones are tapped. Our audio is tapped from above. Our physical location always tapped. All of it. So when these beings came through, I know for a fact that the shadow government was picking up on it. I was receiving some kind of transmission. What was said? My friend. I think if my friend wasn't there, the kind of experience like this would be far greater, way more appreciated, because it would be just me, and I wouldn't have to keep addressing him and trying to get him to shut up and respect what we're, the sanctity of what we're experiencing. I think it kind of ruined the flavor of the experience. He got my family mad and yelling at him. I was embarrassed.
So just to be clear, you believe that these were aliens from another planet, or were these reptilians that are from Earth?
I believe that they're from somewhere else, that they are my family, of which I've always felt has a home planet far away from this one. I think many of the things that I learned when I was younger has panned out the way it has been told to me, and that it'd be dumb to start doubting some of these things now. And if I'm wrong, I'll learn in the future if it is. Certain things that now that's happening are things that I know about, and I guarantee that I wouldn't be saying that we've been contacted through a cell phone that wasn't even mine, if it wasn't like clearly that. I'm very critical of even my own experiences, and for me to say this is big. It really is big. And the shadow government surveillance and aircraft surveillance has increased tenfold since this experience. I know the shadow government knows that this happened. Now they're really convinced, and I think I involved the local U.S. government, because they sent so many aircraft, and this was that this may have been something that was confidential and locked and under key, because only the shadow government was really in with surveilling me and everything like that. When I think me going to another state and causing this kind of response, with especially the assault vehicles, that the local federal governments in the state demands to know what was happening, and perhaps the file on me isn't confidential anymore to them. I think this is extended to more of a global threat on what they perceive to be a global threat. Because now, like, an actual ET has been recorded to be making contact with me. They're not playing games. Even this all the way since then till this morning, which has been 3 days total. Tonight will make it the fourth night. It's just. Go ahead.
Just going to ask maybe one more question, and then I can open it up if the audience has any questions or comments for Draccar. get ready to ask them soon. But when you say that the reptilians are your family, do you believe that you have some genetic or biological reptilian blood or DNA, or is it just on a spiritual level? Or in what sense are you their family?
I would say that it's definitely not physical. I think that if there's any physical traits drawn from this relationship to them, it would be my soul's influence on my genetics since fetal development to now. And over time, the soul does have an effect on genetics, and not necessarily just the other way around, meaning how the body affects our expression in the physical.
I see. Well, thank you. I certainly have more questions, but does anyone in the audience have a question or comment for Draccar?
Yeah, I actually have a question. I just kind of want to go more in depth in well, not in depth really, but just want to ask. So when you said that they were like celebrating, and everything, uh, I I want to know your personal theories, and I also want to know if you think if this is their first time doing something like this, or if this is like a regular thing.
Regular thing. You mean, I think, oh, no. I think this is very rare that they would do something like this. Very rare.
Right. Okay.
I personally find it very odd that they would use the actual cell phone to communicate with me, because they don't need to do that. There's no need. That's also why I think that the message was to keep doing what I'm doing, that everything's really all right, and just pop their heads out. I think that they were acting as bait, just like my entire life was, to bring out the shadow government using higher states of awareness that apparently produce enough influence to make entire militaries concerned. I think they have
Gotcha.
I think they have a strict surveillance on whether ETs are present on the surface of the planet, and I think that if psychic ETs that are capable of doing a lot more than humans on that level are detected with whatever they have, whatever radars they have, it's something to prevent, I guess, what they would consider an invasion. But obviously, we've sent our own people in the form of humans. So I think we really have them out, as humans say, by the balls.
Okay.
No.
Well,
Any more questions?
does anyone else have a question for Draccar? Draccar, what do you think is the future for humanity and the reptilian race? Are they going to reveal themselves to us? Is there going to be some kind of further conflict or war in future? Like, what's going on with this politically?
Yeah. I think it's as it's been expressed in the previous podcast, that this is all leading to a change of management here on Earth, and that introduction of ETs, or what humans consider ETs, whether they are natives or not, other species, other intelligent life, to be coexistent with humans. I think that there's a real stepping stone into the transition of being able for humans to actually interact with these ETs, not necessarily through a language or culture basis, but psychically. Humans need to live lives that foster genetics that allow for things like telepathy and other psychic abilities to be presentable, and for that to be understandable on a practical, logical level, on when described in books or taught by another. And I think that doing so in the transition would be easier, because humans would not start hallucinating, or start feeling like they've in the presence of certain high psychic beings. Humans, because of their lack of development but susceptibility to this energy, humans would start feeling like high when they're in the physical presence of some of these other ET beings. So there needs to be a smooth transition. Humans need to have a more positive light perspective on reptilians, in my opinion, because they've been too exposed to the propaganda, making reptilians seem like negative, evil beings. That it's going to make it even a harder workaround if those ETs of coexistence were reptilian in nature. So I think people like me serve purpose in that regard. And that's the purpose of this podcast, as well as ruffling the feathers of the shadow government once again.
So to be clear, though, are there any do you think we need to worry at all about reptilians that might be hostile or against us? No, you don't think there's any that are against us in any way?
No, not on Earth, not in this situation. I think that the better the only way they'd be hostile is if we were hostile first, right? I mean, I don't mean we as a species. I mean groups that would be given the opportunity to take such action, that it would be in self-defense anyhow. But we would approach them. I think that reptilians would be very, very smart about the way they approach things. So even if it was like that, it would be still incremental.
Well, do you think that I know you wouldn't know necessarily, but do you think this is going to happen again? Do you think they're going to make contact with you through the phone again, or do you think this was a shot thing?
I don't know. I gotta say that I just don't know. I've been thinking about that actually about a lot, and my emotions since this experience have been on high gear. I'm both excited, happy I've had this experience. Never thought I'd actually make contact with reptilians before I died in this life, and especially my own family. But on the other hand, I'm also worried about their safety, because that means their location was, given off, as I said before. I am. I'm also teased. The presence, this experience has teased me, because I feel like I've only got a small taste of what I would call home, where I truly belong, feel at home at, whether I'm in this body or not. So, yeah.
Draccar,
Yeah, what's up?
do you think there are advanced humans on the planet right now that could actually handle the intensity of these beings? Because I hear that some of these beings are so intense in energy that you used to start crying on the spot, or your mind is like as if you're on acid or something. Like
Right.
they like really affect people when they're around them in their presence.
Right.
Are there advanced beings that could actually handle that kind of intensity?
Absolutely. I think that there's certain people that are specifically either, are souls that chose this kind of life, or have found some way into human existence that are specific to that purpose, just like as mine was to do this. I think that those people are important. I think they serve a role in the future of Earth after this conflict is over. I'm hoping the conflict doesn't end in war, personally, because there's been too much of it. And I'm tired of war. I might be a warrior. My higher self might be a warrior. That might be my purpose here. But I don't like war. I'd rather things be peaceful, even with the facts I know to be of ancient Earth history to be true. Really, everything in me makes me not want to end this in peace. And I just, I just want to kick their ass and kick them. But
So,
yeah.
I mentioned Draccar to you before that I have a friend in real life. Since I was a kid, I've known him who, says that he was contacted or encountered reptilians in the flesh on 2 different occasions. And since that ties in, I might as well quickly tell the story. It doesn't take long. But basically, he had sort of PTSD about this because he found it so terrifying. And, when he told me this, I knew for sure he was telling the truth. He wasn't lying. He was telling the truth as he understood it. He wasn't the kind of guy who would lie. I know him well enough. And he was visibly scared by this whole thing. But basically, the reptilian just appeared beside his bed, or he woke up and it was already there. And he said he just felt the most overwhelming fear, unimaginable, and he couldn't move, and it just sort of stared at him. And it was this big, dark green, scaled, reptile guy. And then another day, he got out of bed and opened the door, and one of the same thing was standing there, again, big, taller than a human. And then he blacked out or got paralyzed. So what do you make of that? Do you think those are the same entities? Do you think they're different? Do they ever do that where they just appear beside someone's bed or in their home, do you think?
Well, I grew up experiencing reptilian entities. I've always had countless experiences with these beings on a spiritual level. Never in the physical, and I would count this as a physical experience. As I said, my friend was beside me. But yeah, no, I can't really comment on another person's experience. I'd say that I've experienced entities in a different way, but that some people are more visual, and that maybe this would be their way of interpreting the multi-dimensional existence of an entity interacting with them.
And I suppose, is there anyone else who has another question for Draccar before we start closing up? Okay, well, Draccar, thanks so much for sharing your experience. It's super interesting. What do you think is the takeaway that people should leave from this? Like, what do you think is the message we should get from this experience?
Oh, just a take. Okay, well, the takeaway I think is that shadow government's on plus or times 10 on me. They're more the concern at this point. But that I'm happy to be able to share this experience. It was a humble and although emotionally confusing experience. It was something I really liked and keep going back on. It both hurts and feels good to go back on this experience, as I just want to reach back out to that energy. I feel it now, but not as much as, during the conversation, and certainly not as much as if it would be if I were there physically. I'm not sure where they are. Most of everything is conjecture about assuming that they're on a ship. It's just the general feeling that I'm getting, especially based on the one who walked across the room and hit a switch. And that third one was so excited. He was squawking like, rah, rah! Like in the background. He sounded like so silly, but at the same time, like so sincere. I really felt so humbled by all three of them. It felt like truly like it was a family reunion. Although, like I said, it could have been better. It doesn't really matter. I accept what I get. And just hope that there will be some kind of contact in the future, and that if I'm destined to live long enough for something like that in this life, that so be it. And I await that experience. I actually feel like something is going to be happening very soon. Maybe in my account, maybe with this world. I'm not quite sure. I think this symbolizes a whole lot. And that people should pay attention to the sky.
Absolutely. As the skies. Thank you so much, Draccar. Thanks everybody for listening. Please make sure you listen to his last podcast, Reptilians in the War for Earth. It's posted in the general chat. I can post it again if you missed it the first time. It's just a little ways up. But thanks, Draccar, and we'll have you on again soon. Let us know if anything else transpires. And again, please make sure you guys join us this evening, where I'll be interviewing Wolven Rain about technocracy and other interesting subjects. So tune in for that. Make sure you join the Reptilian Discord server. Check announcements for upcoming events and RT podcast for our 4 great channels. Hundreds of podcasts, interviews, debates, and special events to be found there. God bless. And be safe, everybody. Let's jump up to Round Table or the pub.